Welcome to Inside the Lane, a focus segment of the Our Parking Industry podcast hosted by TPN.
In this segment, we explore the ideas, innovations, and conversations shaping the parking industry, from industry partners to timely topics impacting the parking experience.
These short episodes create space to spotlight organizations, share perspectives, and dive into what's new and noteworthy across our industry.
Let's step inside the lane.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Our Parking Industry podcast. I am Krista Olien, and I'm here with an Inside the Lane episode. Today, we have a special guest, Robert Pohrer. If you can, please, Robert, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you made it into the industry, a little bit about your company, what you do, how you serve the parking industry, and then we'll go from there.
I appreciate it, Krista. My name's Robert Pohrer. I am kind of from the old guard of parking where I grew up around it. Grandfather started a company by accident. He invested in some parking lots in the 1930s. Fast forward, after college, I decided to, see if working in the family business is something I'd want to do. I did that for about 20 years and took a small valet company that was a subsidiary of St. Louis Parking from about 50 employees to about 250. And then COVID happened. And then 2 weeks later, I didn't have any employees. And as a young father with 3 kids and a wife, wanted to do something else and decided to sell the company, the valet section of the company, and get in the insurance industry, which I had always thought many carriers didn't truly understand parking, both the value and how big it is, but really just didn't understand it and thought it was risky. And been doing that now about 4 years in May. So I've really enjoyed the move. There's certain things in parking I do miss, but there's quite a few things running a company I do not. So that's to try to keep us to 50,000 feet. I want to give you kind of a quick feedback on my background and let you take it from there, Krista.
Absolutely. So what exactly do you do with Daniel and Henry? Can you explain kind of your role, your direct position right now?
So I am an insurance broker or producer, depending on who you talk to. And I did work for Marsh McLennan Agency for a few years and learned kind of the ins and outs of the industry from there. Big corporate firm, but I really wanted to get back to kind of owning my own business and being independent. And that's why I went to Daniel Henry. We're a very large independent firm. But I am a broker and I'm focused. I'd say 80 to 85% of my focus every day is on parking because I love the industry. I know the ins and outs. Earlier in my career, I actually handled claims and loss control for 5 years. So I have an intricate knowledge of the other side from that as well. So my goal is just to educate the carriers, which I've really done, and then get in front of potential parking companies and really tell them, hey, I'm more of a former CEO that happens to be a broker now, but I still have that CEO hat on every day. And that's why I love what I do. I can pick who I work with, but I'm coming at this differently than I'd say anybody else.
Yeah, I feel like that's a really unique quality. You have parking background and now you're providing this service for the industry. So are there different kinds of insurance that you provide, or is parking a one size fits all? Can you tell us a little bit about the variety?
So I guess I can answer that a couple ways. No, there's not one way to do it. Depending on the size of the parking company, you could do something called a captive, which is kind of a longer term play, or they can just do the basic property and casualty that others do. And I do some non-parking as well. But today, obviously, we're talking parking. What I really want, first thing I do is when I get a prospect or potential client, just say, hey, let me look at your policies. Let me see what's your long-term plan. It's not just, let's not just talk insurance. Where are you going? What are you trying to acquire? Are you trying to sell? Are you organically growing in a certain region? So it's really, I like to assess I've created what I call a parking insurance playbook, which I know I need to probably come up with a better nickname, but it's coverages that I wish I would have known about when I was running my company. Like there's one particular one called trade credit insurance that it basically insures your accounts receivable. A lot of these companies carry very large accounts receivable on behalf of other asset owners. That's just one thing that's part of my playbook that I introduce people, and it gets their attention because they're like, shoot, I never heard about that. And sadly, I never heard about it when I was an operator. I didn't find out about it until 3 years ago from a prospect, ironically.
That's so interesting. I think that playbook would be valuable. I like the name. I feel like that tells exactly what it is and how somebody can use it.
The funny thing about our insurance is we're very I don't want to say paranoid, maybe protective is a better word, where I don't want to share that out with the world because somebody could easily just take that and copy it. So I share little nibbles of it with people. It's something I worked on around the holidays. I had kind of a slow day. I think it was December 23rd, and I was kind of brainstorming, like, how can I, just another differentiator into 2026 and beyond that I think people will at least give me an audience. And I'm here today because I really do love the industry. And when I decided to sell my company, I almost just went the whole other direction, said, I'm going to get out of this. I'm not going to do anything parking adjacent. I'm just going to take the Band-Aid off and go another way. It's been a good run. And the more I just thought about it, I had to find something parking adjacent. I have great connections. I love the people. There's a lot of really wonderful people in the industry, as you know. And through a lot of conversations and meetings and sleepless nights, truthfully, it just kept coming back to insurance from people both in and out of the industry.
Well, I think being able to trust your insurance broker is a really important part. And so to have the confidence that parking and you're bringing that to helping them plan and helping them make decisions is a really valuable quality that you bring. So I appreciate that. You talked earlier about how you scaled a valet company. And whenever I think high insurance ticket prices, I think valet. So tell us how those two things kind of play together, how you were able to scale that company from your origin story, just however you want to chat about it.
That's a great question, Krista. So when I started in the valet business, it was truthfully, and this was self-admitted from family, valet was not the priority. It was the smaller company. It was whatever you want to call it. And we had, at that time, a very small deductible. And we thought, oh, shoot, we'll just turn every claim in and let the insurance company handle it. Well, I get into the loss control and claims side of things. I learned that's the worst way to do it. Your loss runs stick with you for years. And so I started, asking people, hey, how do you do this? I'm not trying to steal their business. I'm just curious. And I've learned from the very largest parking companies, they're a big believer in doing basically self-insuring and not turning anything in unless it's catastrophic. So I wasn't at their scale, but I went from one hotel to a dozen, which was a big jump over, 15 or so years. And I knew that losses had to be very, very well looked at and tended to. One of the proudest things I knew that moments came, post-COVID, I knew that to get, I went from 250 employees to zero, and then I built it back up. Well, I needed to get health insurance, and I didn't have enough employees, so I had to go the PEO route. And the PEO, one of the reasons you do that is they have a really good loss and mod. My mod was better than theirs. And they're like, Robert, this doesn't happen very often. So I'm like, well, you all got to meet me halfway. I can't take, so we ended up kind of negotiating in the middle. But I was so keenly focused on keeping the losses, out of the carrier's hands, because I knew both for the company and just year to year, it was very important to keep an eye on that.
Absolutely. That is so interesting. I think that's really good advice too, is like you said, the larger companies, they can kind of be self-insured to a point, but then they always have that backup plan in a way. And then we do financial reviews and audits. And so looking at GKL as an expense item, that has come up a lot. So do you have any advice on how to keep that GKL in check so that it doesn't cost the property owners and managers an arm and a leg, right? So do you have any advice?
Yeah, that's, the GKL has been, I've been at Daniel Henry's a year last month, and literally we have carriers in our office 4 days a week. And I lead with that because that is, for most parking companies, that's the biggest expense of the insurance line item is the GKL. And they're like, well, tell me why. It's so important to protect it, but it's also, again, back to carriers not understanding it. I just don't think they truly understand how much different it is to park your own car at a Cowboys game versus valet park at a nice hotel in Houston. The risks are so vast within parking. And so to me, the GKL side, I really educate the carriers. I call parking a law firm. Within, there's all different types of lawyers and all different types of parking companies within the industry. And the risks are from here to here. I mean, left to right. I mean, as far as you can go. So that's what I'm really doing is just educating these carriers and talking more about self-insurance options that I know we've already hit on. Captives are a really big thing right now. I don't know how much you know about those, but that's basically you're joining a group of like-minded industries where you all share the risk together, and then they invest a bit of your premium. And once you get several years in, if you perform, you get a dividend back. That's another piece of my little playbook that you have to have a certain spend minimum, and and your losses have to be of a certain value, a certain, not threshold. But that's where I'm, if they're GKL, if they are long-term thinking and not trying to sell or buy, the captive is a real option. Or if they're more short-term, it's talking more about, bumping your deductible up and self-insuring. So I hopefully it doesn't sound like we're beating the dead horse on the self-insured, but I do think it's been around a long time. I did it, and there is intrinsic value to it.
That captive is really interesting. I feel like that's kind of a little secret that you can share. So thank you for sharing that.
I won't, obviously, there's confidentiality. I can't share names, but there are a couple of parking companies that I know and I've spoken with. So when you're in a captive, it's almost impossible to switch from that broker to myself. It's like 99 point something sticky. And I knew that. And I talked to these people and said, hey, I'd just love to hear your experience. And they basically got into the captive because they felt like every year they'd get a 30-40% increase, even though they're not having any issues. And they're like, we need to find a better way. So they went to this captive model. Now, when you go to the captive model, you really have to lean in on loss control and claims because you have 100 or 200, however many other companies where you're all together. So you have to kind of lean into it. I think it's a great model. I personally think down the line, even a parking captive could work. We've had some exploratory conversations with some people on that. I think that's very early on. But I do think so the reasons you get these big increases in people ran to captives is you can have great losses, but part of why you get increases just because of your class of business. And parking is not considered, it's considered a risky class of business, even though I had mentioned it's a law firm. It's still overall net, it's considered risky. So that's why people, the really smart ones that can qualify for the captives have already done it. And a couple of them are like 3 or 4 years into it and very happy. And the old saying is once you get into a captive, you're not going to leave. So it's something I'm very excited about. I think it's a way that I can help this industry because if I had my company today, that's what I would do.
Well, that is really great information. And I feel like you can provide so much more knowledge. So how can people reach you? How can our listeners find you if they need help with their insurance needs?
My emails are daniel@danielandhenry.com. Cell phone is 314-486-5724. They could also look it up, danielandhenry.com. What I love about our firm, I'll give a brief kind of explanation. Our firm is 105 years old, started in St. Louis, Missouri. We have a Chicago office and a small Southern Missouri office. But the reason when I left Marsh, I wanted to find the right place. We're fiercely independent. And as a former owner, that was super, super, super important to me. Where I own my own business, nobody tells me where I come and go. But I also needed to be able to write big parking risks. So we're part of something called the Surex Global. So we're 100-ish firms around the world. Actually, we band together and our buying power is top 5 in the world. So I can compete with an Aon, a Marsh McLennan, folks like that, but also be able to run my business how I want to run my business. It's been a really wonderful spot. There's multi-generational people in here. There's fathers and sons work together. I'm with a group. There's a father and a daughter. There's uncles and nephews. It's really, I grew up in a family business and I did miss that. It's not 100% why I'm here, but the culture of this place is what I was looking for. And I really think it's where I'm going to be until I no longer do this. And I have no plans on slowing down anytime soon. My end game is to just to help parking as much as I can as a large focus of what I do every day. I know that sounds maybe kind of cheesy, but it's people that know me, Krista, know that I love parking and I tried to leave, and the old joke, you try to leave parking, and they pull you back in. So
always.
I have 3 young men, young sons, and I'm hoping in the decades to come that they'll want to potentially, at least one of them will want to work with Dad and see if we can keep this thing going.
I love that. Well, you are super genuine, Robert. I knew whenever I met you at WLF that we wanted to have you on the podcast. So I appreciate you being here, sharing about Daniel and Henry and your for parking and helping provide insurance to the industry. So thank you so much for your time.
All right, Krista, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
The parking industry is always evolving, and so are the conversations around it.
So come back each month to Inside the Lane for insights, ideas, and solutions.
We invite you to follow, subscribe, and join TPN and featured vendors on social media to stay up to date.
Thanks for being with us inside the lane.